Appreciate all of you being here. Appreciate my colleague and two of our law enforcement professionals that are here that have joined us for this landmark important legislation that we will be introducing. I'm grateful to have both Sheriff Bill Brown from Santa Barbara and Jared Wilson from San Diego's PORAC Association here for National Police Week, including my colleague Don Bacon from Nebraska, who is truly not just a colleague, but a friend and somebody that I've gotten to know over the years. We do a lot of things together, and yet this is another important piece of policy and legislation that we have worked on together. This is a time to recognize the critical work that our law enforcement officers do to keep our families, our neighborhoods, and our communities safe. They are on the front lines of so many of the issues we are talking about every week here in Congress. Gun violence, violence against women, retail and organized crime, the opioid epidemic, and even climate change, as our first responders are called upon to help anytime there's a major weather event or disaster. But as the data shows, these gentlemen will tell you it has become harder to get the cops we need on the beat, especially in smaller cities like the ones we represent. A DOJ report published last year found a 50% rise in resignations and a 20% rise in retirements when comparing 2022 to 2019. And California saw a similar trend. We lost 3,500 officers in that period to bring us to the lowest number of officers per capita since 1994. In fact, the fact is, we need these officers to keep our communities safe, but when we underinvest in recruiting officers, it hurts our smaller departments the most. Everyone hears about the bonuses that LAPD and New York Police Department can pay, but that is hardly something the vast majority of American police departments can match. That is why we have programs like the COPS hiring program to help our departments recruit, hire, and retain good officers. What we are proposing is simple. With the Filling Police Safety Vacancies Act, which is a one-time emergency appropriation to double the amount of money for the fiscal year. That will give the Department of Justice the resources needed to help more police departments match the rising cost of living, pay the salaries that recruit good officers, and protect our streets. And on top of that, $162 million in emergency appropriation, we are adding for the first time language into the statute for this program that requires any department using this grant funding to hire officers to conduct a background check and mental health screenings of their candidates. By writing into law this background check requirement, we send the same bipartisan message that we have for years, that being a law enforcement official is an important job in our communities and one that requires the best caliber of individuals. We put our communities in the hands of our police and public safety officers. We should be recruiting those who can live up to those high standards. And we need to rebuild the trust between our communities and public officials. This is a bipartisan, bicameral effort. There has been too much partisanship injected into the support of our law enforcement in recent years. It should not be controversial to say that we need to support those who keep us safe. Nor should it be a taboo to say that our law enforcement officers should be held to the highest standard that comes with that critical role. My colleague Representative Bacon and I agree on these principles and are proud this Police Week to be advocating for our local law enforcement. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their community, and this bill will help achieve that goal. And with that, let me introduce to you my colleague and good friend and co-sponsor of this bill, Don Bacon.
Thank you, Salud. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. As Salud has said, we're very good friends. Over the last 8 years, I've developed a couple very close friendships where we travel to each other's districts. He's one of my closest friends, so it's been a joy to go out and visit him in his district. He's been out in our district. We hope to do that again. And we partner on so many different things. I'm glad to partner on this and supporting our law enforcement. So I love our law enforcement. We love our law enforcement, whether it's our city police, our county sheriffs, our state troopers, or at the federal level. We know that you protect us from bad people so that we don't have to deal with them. And so we appreciate that. We also know that on our worst days, you were there, whether it's on a car accident or whatever it may be, you were there to help us. So we love our police. And I think as a military guy, I served 30 years in the Air Force. I feel like our law enforcement are in the family, same family. You know, we would deploy to protect our country, and so we have the sense of defending our country. But we know our law enforcement, you defend our country every day when you go out in our local communities and deal with criminals or whatever it may be. So there's a kinship there and that I've always valued. So this is important. Since 2020, when we had all the riots in the summer 2020, law enforcement was, I think, unfairly attacked. I mean, what was done in Minneapolis was wrong, right? And those folks were held accountable. It was wrong to do broad brush and blame all law enforcement for the behavior of those few folks. And what we've seen consequence out of that is it's been harder to recruit and retain law enforcement. And we need law enforcement in every one of our towns and cities and states and counties and so forth. So this is meant to help try to deal with that problem, to get our recruitment back up, our retention back up, because we need it. I represent Omaha, and I also represent about 12 other smaller cities and towns, and they all tell me right now recruitment is hard, and which we want to maintain high standards. We want to maintain the very best there. So this money, $162 million infusion into the COPS programs, recruitment programs, is meant to address this for our local communities because we need our law enforcement, and this is helping address that. So Salud, thanks for allowing me to be part of your team on this.
Thank you, Don. Next, we have Santa Barbara County Sheriff Bill Brown representing Major County Sheriffs Association, and I have the privilege of being close friends with him. He's from my district, Santa Barbara County, and a good 25 years of our service has overlapped in one way or another on the Board of Supervisors, and him as Chief of Police in our district, and then eventually Sheriff for Santa Barbara County. Bill?
Thank you, Congressman Carbajal. Good morning, and thank you also to Congressman Don Bacon for inviting me to speak today on the Filling Police Public Safety Vacancies Act. I'm especially pleased to be able to do so during this venerable week when we honor our nation's fallen law enforcement officers. Those flags behind you there, each one represents 10 fallen law enforcement officers that has occurred in the history of our country. Over 2,400 flags, over 24,000 officers represented. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown from Santa Barbara County, and as you heard, I also serve as the president of the Major County Sheriffs of America, which represents the largest sheriff's offices in our country. As we near the end of National Police Week, it is evident now more than ever that we must find every possible way to support and protect the brave men and women in law enforcement who serve their communities with courage and integrity. This week, 282 additional names were added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial here in Washington, D.C., bringing the total number of peace officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty throughout American history to more than 24,000. We must always honor these noble men and women, and we must also continuously support their grieving families, their loved ones, and their surviving colleagues who are so profoundly impacted by their tragic losses. May we remember the debt that we owe them as we all work together to craft public policy that respects, supports, protects, and uplifts these guardians who are responsible for maintaining order and ensuring safety in our homeland. To that notion, I applaud Congressman Salud Carbajal, who's a great friend and who, as you've heard, serves as my personal California congressional representative, and also Congressman Don Bacon of Nebraska. We thank you both for the fine work and most notably the bipartisan leadership that has occurred here in introducing the Filling Public Safety Vacancies Act. This legislation will provide additional funding support for the COPS hiring program. The Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, which administers the COPS hiring program, has been an extraordinary partner to law enforcement across the country, and they continue to recognize the needs of the ever-changing world of law enforcement. This is especially so in supporting our recruitment and retention efforts. The additional $162 million that this legislation would infuse would double the amount of grant funding available to local law enforcement agencies in this program. Law enforcement budgets in many, if not most, communities across the nation remain constrained, which in turn has made the recruitment and the retention of officers very difficult. This legislation is most welcome because it provides financial support for the expanded hiring of men and women to fill essential positions that keep our communities safe. As you've heard, in the last 5 years, police resignations and retirements have skyrocketed due to a variety of factors. The enactment of the Filling Public Safety Vacancies Act is sound public policy that will help address the current shortages in the criminal justice workforce. Furthermore, this legislation will promulgate sound requirements to hire people as law enforcement officers, including background checks and mental health evaluations. We must ensure that those who are employed to protect others properly fit that role, and that they will add to the betterment of the law enforcement profession as a whole. It is essential that the right people be selected and hired to fill these important positions. Law enforcement is a calling that I heard myself 47 years ago when I began my career in policing. And while much has changed in our nation and in our world during that time, one thing that has remained constant is the need to provide those men and women who wear the badge and put themselves in harm's way, to provide them with the proper resources they need to perform their critical role in protecting the American homeland. The most important resources in policing are our people, and it is these human resources that this legislation seeks to support and enhance. So again, Congressman Carbajal and Bacon, the Major County Sheriffs of America thanks you for introducing this legislation and for your continued support of the men and women who put their lives on the line daily in order to protect the safety of all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, I would like to introduce President of the San Diego Police Officers Association, representing PORAC, the Peace Officers Research Association of California, one of the largest, if not the largest, law enforcement organization in the state of California. With that, Jared Wilson.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman, thank you both for the introduction, and thank you for being here for this bipartisan legislation that is so critical to protecting the men and women who put their lives on the line every day throughout our nation to protect the people that they serve. My name is Jared Wilson. I'm the president of the San Diego Police Officers Association and a sergeant on the San Diego Police Department. I'm also honored to be here today on behalf of the Peace Officers Research Association of California, the largest state-based organization for law enforcement in the United States. We have approximately 80,000 public safety members and over 900 public safety associations from across the state. Congressman Carbajal and Congressman Bacon, we are very much appreciative of your leadership on this legislation. I have been a police officer for over 20 years, working the streets in a major urban area. I can confidently say that staffing is the lowest level that I have ever experienced. This comes at a time when the role of police officers has expanded and the public safety concerns are at a critical level across our nation. The staffing challenges facing law enforcement today come from both ends of the career spectrum. With the number of new qualified applicants decreasing every day, retirements and resignations continue to rise due to the demanding nature of the job and the emotional and physical toll it takes on the people who serve every day. This is still putting a strain on the officers who are coming to work every day and making it very difficult to hire new officers who are qualified to do this difficult job. As we've all seen, these factors have converged with the recent rise in crime, which is having long-lasting and far-reaching impacts on communities across our country. As peace officers, we put our lives on the line every day to keep our communities safe. But unfortunately, these persuasive shortages, coupled with the continued rise of violent crime, are making it increasingly difficult and challenging to accomplish our goals. In my community of San Diego, staffing shortages have caused incredibly long wait times to increase over the last several years. A domestic violence in progress call or a burglary in progress call takes over 30 minutes across our city for a response on average. For less serious crimes, which victims still deserve a swift response for, wait times are over 2 hours. And this is not just a major issue in metropolitan areas across America. It's exacerbated in rural communities that have smaller budgets and even greater recruiting challenges to find law enforcement candidates qualified to fill the numerous vacancies. This leads to long emergency response times, which has led some local departments to make incredibly tough decisions, like in Tehama County, where they ended daytime patrols due to a lack of sworn staffing. Law enforcement shortages impact everyone, from innocent people who expect and deserve a rapid response when they are a victim of a tragedy, to businesses who are forced to close their doors due to rising crime. Maintaining proper staffing levels is essential to preventative efforts. Studies show that each additional officer results in 1.3 fewer violent felony crimes and 4.2 fewer property crimes per year, meaning that having the appropriate number of peace officers directly corresponds with safer communities. PORAC and the San Diego Police Officers Association is proud to support Congressman Carbajal's Filling Public Safety Vacancies Act, which would have a one-time emergency boost of $162 million through the COPS Hiring Grant Program to help law enforcement agencies across America fill these key vacancies. We recognize it is not simply enough to fill these vacancies. We know because of the important role peace officers play in these communities, we need the best of the best to fill our ranks. This bill will do just that by making sure the funding ensures those who join the police are well suited for this role. By filling our agencies with quality applicants and individuals who are dedicated to our core mission of serving the community, we are confident that this legislation will help build trust and continue to build additional trust in the communities and the public that we serve.